Hello everyone, my name is Samra Absardana and today I'm going to be teaching you Q Skills for Success Reading Skill Level 2 Unit 3. Reading 1 starting on page 48, Being Polite from Culture to Culture. Activity A. Here are some words from Reading 1. Read the sentences, then write each underlined word next to the correct definition. So we basically need to match each word with its definition. Let's read the sentences first. Number 1. I had an awkward conversation with my friend about money. He always borrows money and forgets to repay me. 2. Sam has really bad manners. He never says please or thank you to anyone, and he often talks with food in his mouth. 3. The boys dressed appropriately for the wedding. They wore nice suits. 4. Psychologists are interested in human behavior. They are studying what people do in different situations. 5. When the president entered the room, everyone stood up as a sign of respect. 6. Nat held his daughter's hand firmly when they crossed the street. He wanted to make sure he walked next to him. 7. When you have a job interview, it's important to make a good impression. You should dress well, arrive on time, and ask questions. 8. Laura made a gesture to ask the waiter to bring the check because she didn't want to shout across the restaurant. And the correct answers are as follows. A. Respect. Noun. Polite behavior towards someone or something you think is important. B. Behavior. Noun. The way you act or behave. C. Awkward. Adjective. Not comfortable. Embarrassing. D. Make a good impression. Phrasal verb. To produce a good effect or opinion. E. Family. Adverb. In a strong, steady way. And F. Noun. Ways of acting that are considered polite in your society or culture. Manners. G. Appropriately. Adverb. Suitable or right for a particular situation. And H. Gesture. Noun. A movement of the hand or head to express something. Next, in Activity C, you need to preview the reading text. Look at the photos and the captions in the article. What do they tell you about the topic of the article? So if you look at them, the answer you may surmise is as follows. The photos and captions suggest that this article will be about manners such as shaking hands, using eye contact, and giving gifts in different cultures. Moving on to the reading section, being polite from culture to culture.
Unit 3, Reading 1. Being polite from culture to culture. Most people want to be polite and behave well around others. Being polite means knowing how to greet and talk to people. It means using good manners when eating. It means knowing how to give and receive gifts appropriately. Polite behavior in one country, however, may be impolite in another part of the world. Travelers need to understand the cultural differences in politeness so that they don't cause embarrassment. For instance, when people meet, they often shake hands. How long should a handshake be? Should you hold the other person's hand gently or firmly? In the United States, people prefer to shake hands firmly for a few seconds. In some Middle Eastern countries, people hold the person's hand gently for a longer time. Handshaking varies around the world. What about eye contact? In some countries, you show respect when you look someone directly in the eye. In other parts of the world, to look at someone directly is rude. To be respectful, a person looks down at the ground. There are also cultural differences in the way people use personal space. When two people are talking, should they stand close together or far apart? Exactly how close should they stand? In North America, for instance, People usually stand about an arm's length apart during a conversation. However, in some countries in the Middle East and Latin America, people stand close. It can be awkward if one person likes to stand close and the other person likes to stand farther apart. 3 authors wrote a book, Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands, about cultural differences. In their book, they discuss greetings, gift-giving, and time. Around the world, cultures have different ideas about giving gifts. In the United States, if someone gives you a gift, you should open it while they are with you. That way, they can see how happy you are to receive it. In China, you should open a gift after the person is gone. Another cultural difference is time. If someone invites you to dinner at their house at 6 p.m., what time should you get there? Should you arrive early, late, or exactly on time? In Germany, it is important to arrive on time. In Argentina, polite dinner guests usually come 30 to 60 minutes after the time of the invitation. When traveling, remember that each country has a different definition of being on time. A final area to be careful about is body language, including gestures. Is it acceptable to touch a person on the shoulder? How do you wave goodbye or hello? How do you gesture to someone to come here? All of these can be different from one culture to another. In Vietnam, it is rude to touch someone on the head with the palm of the hand. The gesture for come here in the U.S. is only used for calling animals in some other countries. If you are going to live, work, or study in another country, it is important to learn the language. But it is also important to learn about cultural differences. This way, you can be polite and make a good impression. People around you will feel comfortable and respected. Politeness and good manners can be good for making friends, good for traveling, and good for business too.
Moving on to activity B. Read the statements, write true or false, then correct each false statement. Number 1. Polite behavior is the same everywhere. False. Polite behavior is often different in different countries. 2. People make eye contact in different ways in different cultures. True. 3. Most people are comfortable with same amount of personal space. False. Personal space is different in different cultures. 4. Being on time is important in every culture. False. Each country has a different definition of being on time. 5. Some gestures are polite in one country and rude in another. True. 6. It's only important to know what is polite in your own country. False. It's useful to learn about cultures or cultural differences. Next, activity C. Circle the answer to each question. Question 1. Why do travelers need to understand cultural differences in politeness? The answer is B, so no one will be embarrassed. 2. How do people in the United States prefer to shake hands? A. Family, for a short time. 3. How closely do people in Latin America or the Middle East like to stand while talking? C. More closely than an arm's length. 4. What should you do if someone in China gives you a gift? B. Wait until the person has left before opening it. 5. You are invited for dinner at 7 p.m. in Germany. What time should you arrive? B. 7 p.m. And 6. If you show that you understand cultural differences and politeness, how will people feel? A. Comfortable and respected. Moving on. Page 52. Activity D. Complete the chart. Use countries or regions and topics from the boxes. Now, as you can see, we have 3 columns: the paragraph number, then country or region, and then the topic. From paragraph 2, the United States, the Middle East, greetings. Paragraph 4, the countries are North America, the Middle East, Latin America, and the topic is personal space. Paragraph 5, United States, China, gift giving. Paragraph 6, Germany, Argentina, time. And paragraph 7, Vietnam, United States, and the topic is gestures. Moving on, next we have some discussion questions that you may discuss in a group. Of course, the answers will vary based on your discussion. For example, question 1, what are some examples of what it means to be polite? You can give different examples. Examples differ from culture to culture. In the United States, it's polite to shake hands firmly and to open a gift when it is given to you. So basically the rest of the questions are discussion questions for students with their colleagues and their teacher. Next, write what you think. A. Ask and answer the questions with a partner. We have another 2 discussion questions. Question 1. How do people use personal space differently in different parts of the world? Of course, the answer will vary, and the possible answers are, for example, in North America, when people are speaking, they stand about an arm's length apart. People stand closer together in some places, such as some countries in Latin America and the Middle East. Question 2. Why do you think body language is different from one culture to another? An example answer. I think body language is different in different cultures because some cultures are more formal than others. For example, in cultures where respect is very important, it's not always polite to greet someone with a kiss on the cheek. In section B, you need to choose one of the questions from activity A and write a response. You can use the supporting examples to help you with your answer. Next, we have the reading skill, identifying supporting details. Our written article includes details that support the main ideas. Details can be facts, reasons, or examples. Identifying supporting details will help you understand the main ideas of an article. Look at the following example. This is the main idea. Bowing is a form of greeting in many countries. And we have 3 details which are supporting details. The first one, bowing is the traditional greeting in East Asia. This is a fact. A fact is something you know is true. The next one, people bow low when greeting older people because it's a sign of respect. This is a reason, another supporting detail, which is the cause of something. And detail number 3, in a very formal bow, the forehead sometimes touches the floor. This is an example, something that shows what something is like. Identifying and understanding important supporting details as you read can help you improve your reading comprehension. Moving on, activity A. Reread paragraph 4 and reading 1. Look at the main idea of the paragraph, write 2 details that support it, then compare your answers with a partner. So go back to paragraph 3. The main idea is there are cultural differences in the way people use personal space, and there are 2 example supporting details. Number 1, in North America, people usually stand about an arm's length apart during a conversation. And detail number 2, in some countries in the Middle East and Latin America, people stand closer. Activity B, reread paragraph 5. Answer the questions, then compare your answers with a partner. What is the main idea? The main idea of paragraph 5 is as follows. Around the world, cultures have different ideas about giving gifts. And how many supporting details are in the paragraph? What are they? There are 2 supporting details. 1, in the United States, if people give you a gift, you should open it while they are with you. And 2, In China, you should open a gift after the person is gone. Moving on to page 54, activity C. Now you need to reread paragraph 6, answer the questions, and discuss your answers with a partner. What is the main idea? The main idea of paragraph 6 is another cultural difference is time. What examples does the writer use as supporting details? Remember that supporting details can be facts, examples, and reasons. We need the examples. There are two examples. One, in Germany, it's important to arrive on time. And two, in Argentina, polite dinner guests usually come 30 to 60 minutes after the time of the invitation. Now reading 2, answer to all your travel questions. As usual, in activity A, we have some words. You need to read the sentences and circle the answer that best matches the meaning of each underlined word. Number 1. My uncle gave me some good advice about starting a business. Advice means C, words that help someone decide what to do. 2. A custom you will notice when you go to Japan is that people don't wear their shoes inside their homes. A, way of life. 3. It's rude to interrupt someone when they are speaking. You should always let them finish. A, make someone stop talking. I want to take part in the meeting about the neighborhood school. I think it's going to be very interesting. Take part in. B, join, participate in. 5. Classes at many universities are informal. Students can bring food to class and ask questions whenever they want. Informal. B, relaxed and friendly. 6. It's traditional in some countries for the bride to wear a white dress for the wedding. In other countries, the bride wears red. C, ways of doing things that have existed for a long time. 7. Try to avoid talking when you have food in your mouth. It's very rude. Avoid is A, choose not to do. And 8. On a typical day, Eric works from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but today he worked until 7:30 p.m. Typical means C, usual. In the preview activity, in this online discussion board, travelers ask for advice about customs in different countries. What kinds of topics do you think the travelers will ask about? So what do you think? If you review the discussion, you can check the following. Check this one, giving, receiving gifts, and this one, table manners. You can add another topic, for example, formality. Moving on to the reading section, page 56, answers to all your travel questions.
Unit 3, Reading 2.
Answers to all your travel questions. Question. First trip to U.S. Yongjun Park in Seoul asks, for my new job, I will travel to the United States next month and meet my American boss. This will be my first trip to the U.S. I'm worried about correct business etiquette and manners. My boss invited me to his home for dinner. Do you have any advice? Sue in Miami says, it's a good idea to bring a small gift or something from your country. Don't be surprised if your boss opens the gift right away. In the U.S., people often open a gift when they receive it. In Korea, that is not polite, but it's appropriate in the U.S. Jun in Seoul says, many Americans are very informal at home. One time, I went to dinner at the home of an American business partner. I was surprised that everyone stood and talked in the kitchen while the husband and wife cooked dinner. Also, unlike in Korea, everyone took part in the dinner table conversation, even the man's wife and children. Andrea in Santiago says, I agree with Jun. I was surprised that American men often cook, and that both the husband and wife come to the dinner table and talk. You probably won't speak about business during dinner, so my advice is to know some good topics of conversation. For example, you can talk about travel, food, or sports. Of course, it's good to ask about your boss's family, but it's not polite to ask questions about age, salary, religion, or politics. Sun-hee Choi in Busan says, Americans use their hands to eat some kinds of food, such as pizza and fried chicken. Watch your American hosts and do what they do.
Unit 3, Reading 2.
Answers to all your travel questions.
Unit 3, Reading 2.
Answers to all your travel questions. Food or sports. Of course, it's good to ask about your boss's family, but it's not polite to ask questions about age, salary, religion, or politics. Sun-hee Choi in Busan says, Americans use their hands to eat some kinds of food, such as pizza and fried chicken. Watch your American hosts and do what they do. Catherine in New York says, in Korea and Japan, it's the custom to remove your shoes before entering a house. In the United States, you usually don't take your shoes off. Once, I was traveling in Japan and entered a house with my shoes on by mistake. Oops. Youngjun Park in Seoul says, it sounds like Americans are so informal. I'll try to be informal and polite. I hope I do the right thing. Thanks for all the advice. One more question. What's an appropriate gift for me to bring my boss and his family? Question. Travel to Egypt. Sam in Los Angeles asks, any tips on table manners in Egypt? I'll be there on business, and I'm sure we will have business dinners. Also, anything else that's important to know? Khalid in Cairo says, Egypt is a traditional country, and it has many customs that are different from the U.S. Table manners are similar to the U.S., but there are a few important differences. For instance, it's impolite to use your left hand to eat. Be sure to read about Egyptian culture before you go. You can avoid embarrassing yourself. Carlos from Madrid says, I traveled to Egypt on business last year and saw two interesting differences in business. First, unlike Americans, Egyptians don't discuss business at the beginning of business meetings. Instead, they begin with informal conversation. This is because personal relationships are very important in Egyptian business. Second, during a meeting in Egypt, it's common for others to come in the room and interrupt the meeting. In the United States, it's rude to interrupt a meeting. In Egypt, these interruptions are typical.
Alright, and that was reading 2. Of course, there are some variations between the actual text and the recording. For example, the one who posted the questions in this form of the book is Mansour Al-Ghanim from Jeddah, and the example giving here in section 5 in replay, it's in Saudi Arabia, not in Korea. Moving on to activity B, read the statements, write true or false, then correct each false statement. Number 1, Mansour Al-Ghanim is worried about his English. He is the one who posted the question for the discussion. The answer is false. Mansour Al-Ghanim is worried about correct business etiquette. 2, it's appropriate to bring a small gift when visiting a home in the US. True. 3, many Americans are very formal at home. False. Many Americans are informal at home. 4, it's a good idea to know several different topics of conversation. True. And 5, Carlos thinks business customs are the same in Egypt and in the US. False. Carlos thinks business customs are different in Egypt and in the US. Moving on to page 58, activity C. Write information from the online discussion board for each of the topics below. Topic 1, when to open gifts. In some other countries, later. In the US, right away. 2, conversation topics in the US. Good topics, travel, food, books, sports, and family. Impolite topics, age, salary, religion, and politics. 3, wearing shoes in the house. In Saudi Arabia, remove your shoes. In the US, don't remove your shoes. 4, beginning business meetings. In the US, discuss business. In Egypt, have informal conversation before a meeting. 5, interruptions in business meetings. In Egypt are acceptable. In the US are unacceptable. In activity D, complete the sentences with words from the box. Some people who travel are worried about etiquette and manners because customs may be different from one country to another. For example, many Americans are informal at home. It isn't unusual for conversations to take place in the kitchen. While preparing a meal, travel, food, or sports are good topics, polite topics for conversation. If you aren't sure what to do when eating, you can watch your hosts. In the US, it isn't necessary to remove your shoes when entering a house. If you travel to Egypt, you should be careful not to eat with your left hand. At business meetings in Egypt, it is common to begin with informal conversation because personal relationships are important in Egyptian business. You should also expect to have people come in and interrupt while the meeting is taking place. Next, we have some discussion questions in activity E that students must discuss with each other or with their teacher. Question 1. What are some examples of good table manners? Of course, the answers will vary based on your discussion. For example, good table manners in the United States include keeping elbows off the table, chewing with your mouth closed, complimenting the food. Question 2. If guests from another country visit you, should they adapt to the behavior in your culture, or should you try to make them feel at home by doing things their way? It's important to make your guests feel comfortable, but it's also important for visitors to learn about your culture. Write what you think. In section A, we have another two discussion questions. Question 1. Why is it important for a business person to understand another culture when traveling? For example, so that he or she is not rude or does not upset his or her host. Question 2. Walid writes, watch your American hosts and do what they do. Is this good advice? What do you think? Why or why not? For example, this is good advice unless your hosts do not have good manners. In section B, you have two questions. Choose one question and write your response. Express your opinion using your own words. You can follow in these examples or use these examples to help you write your response. Question 1. Do you think that people today are less polite than in the past? Why? An example answer, I think that people are less polite today. This is because they are not taught how to be polite from a young age. Question 2. Do you think that people are naturally polite or do they learn to be polite? Explain your answer. People learn to be polite. This is one reason why there are different customs around the world. Now you can use these example answers to help you write your own response. Moving on to the vocabulary skill prefixes. A prefix is a group of letters at the beginning of a word. Adding a prefix to a word changes its meaning. It does not change its part of speech. Understanding prefixes will help you increase your vocabulary. The prefixes in or im and un mean not and are added to adjectives. So remember, in, im, un are added to adjectives and they mean not. There are no rules when to use in or un. You need to learn these words or use a dictionary to help you. Like in these examples, informal means not formal, invisible, not visible, unable, not able, unusual, not usual. M is added to an adjective that starts with the letters M or P. Like the adjective mature, we can add the prefix M, so it becomes immature, which means not mature. Polite, impolite, not polite. Now, look at the words below. Add the correct prefix to each word, then write the new words in the chart. Now you need to check your answers in a dictionary and memorize these words. We have three columns: adjectives that take the prefix in, adjectives that take the prefix m, and adjectives that take the prefix on. In the first column, inappropriate, inexpensive, informal. Adjectives that take m are imperfect, impolite, impossible. Remember, the adjective needs to start with the m or p letters. Adjectives that take the prefix on: unclear, uncomfortable, uncommon, undependable, untraditional, unusual. Moving on to activity B. Complete the sentences with words from activity A. Use the words with or without the prefix. For some sentences, there is more than one correct answer. Number 1. My brother is very dependable. He always does what he says he will do. 2. The directions were confusing and unclear. Aisha got lost 3 times trying to get to the restaurant. 3. Because her first name was so unusual or uncommon, she always had to repeat it several times. 4. It's impossible for me to finish the project on time. I have too much research to do. I can't do it. 5. Our receptionist is very friendly and welcoming. He makes people feel comfortable when they come into the office. 6. Although it was a small and inexpensive gift, it was very thoughtful. The cost wasn't important. 7. The customer was very impolite or inappropriate. He was so rude that no one wanted to help him. 8. Many people sent quick email invitations to celebrations but Jamal sent a traditional or a formal invitation in the mail to his graduation. He chose very expensive paper. 9. The bed was very uncomfortable, so I barely slept all night and I had a backache in the morning. And 10. In the US, it's inappropriate or impolite to ask how old people are or how much money they make. That's it, everybody. Thank you for listening and stay safe.